The Chicago of today didn't simply appear, it was forged. It rose from a swampy trading post into a global titan through a cycle of ambition, disaster, and relentless reinvention. In this video, we are going to peel back the layers of time. Using AI-assisted historical reconstructions, we will breathe new life into archival sketches and photos to walk the streets of a Chicago that no longer exists. 1820. The Silent Frontier. Imagine Chicago in 1820. It wasn't a city, it was barely a whisper on the edge of the American frontier. This reconstruction reveals a solitary landscape defined not by concrete, but by the wild onion plants and the river. A few log cabins cling to the riverbanks, dwarfed by the vast, open prairie. Here, canoes drift lazily downstream, the primary engine of commerce long before the railroads arrived. It is a portrait of solitude, capturing the calm before the storm of industrialization. 1832. The settlement jumped forward just over a decade to 1832, and the pulse quickens slightly. It still resembles a frontier village more than a metropolis, but the seeds of community are planted. You can see the shift in this image. Wooden structures clustering for safety, children playing on the muddy banks, and a lone rider crossing a primitive bridge, the first crucial link connecting the divided sides of the river. Life here was slow and utilitarian, dictated entirely by the seasons and the water. 1831. Fort Dearborn. This sketch from the 1850s looks back at the foundational days of 1831, centering on Fort Dearborn. While historians often debate the perfect accuracy of these old memory sketches, the atmosphere is undeniable. The fort sits on the high ground, a military necessity, surrounded by a modest scattering of homes. It feels remote, almost isolated. It's hard to believe looking at this quiet outpost that it sits on the exact soil that would arguably become the most important transportation hub in America. 1847. 1850. Rice's Theater. As the population grew, so did the hunger for culture. This represents Rice's Theater on Lake Street. To the modern eye, it looks like a simple barn, but in 1847, this was the height of sophistication. It brought the first opera and touring titans of the stage to a city that was still pulling itself out of the mud. Sadly, like much of early Chicago, it was claimed by fire in 1850. Yet, its brief existence proved that Chicago was ready to be more than just a trading post. It wanted a soul. 1853 versus 1857. The explosion, the difference between 1853 and 1857, is staggering. In the 1853 bird's-eye view, you see a town buzzing with potential, the grid layout just starting to assert order over the landscape. But look at 1857. In just 4 years, the city has exploded. The harbor is choked with ships, the grid is densely packed, and the smoke of industry begins to stain the sky. This was the moment the world realized Chicago wasn't just growing, it was accelerating at a pace that terrified and impressed observers. 1871. The aftermath, then the music stopped. This image captures the haunting silence following the Great Fire of 1871. The city's heart was hollowed out. Landmarks like the Grand Pacific Hotel and the Honor Block were reduced to jagged, skeletal remains. It looks like an ancient ruin, not a modern American city. The scene feels suspended in time, capturing the collective shock of a population that lost everything overnight. 1871. The Inferno. Rewinding to the night of the disaster, this illustration attempts to visualize the chaos. It started in a barn on Coven Street, but the wind turned it into a weapon. You can see the wall of fire leaping across the river, a natural barrier that everyone thought would save them. The perspective from the water shows a city dissolving into heat and smoke, with helpless crowds pressed against the pier. It captures the sheer terror of a city realizing it has lost control. Union Depot, the gateway, but Chicago rebuilt with a vengeance. This is the early Union Depot at Adams and Canal. By this time, the railroad was king. The station, with its French-style mansard roofs, wasn't just a waiting room, it was a cathedral of transport. The street outside is a chaotic ballet of horse-drawn freight and travelers. This building was the funnel through which millions of immigrants and tons of cargo poured, fueling the city's second act. Michigan Avenue. The Cliff Dwellers. By the late 19th century, Chicago found its modern identity, stone and steel. Here on Michigan Avenue, the Auditorium and Congress hotels stand like fortresses. The architecture is heavy, confident, and detailed. The chaotic wooden shanties are gone, replaced by wide, orderly boulevards. This is the era where Chicago began to look up, constructing a skyline that announced its permanent return to the world stage. 1885. The Home Insurance Building, and this is the game changer. the home insurance building completed in 1885. It may look modest now at 10 stories, but the architect William LeBaron Jenney hit a revolution inside the walls, a steel frame. It was the world's first true skyscraper. Before this, walls held the weight of the building. After this, buildings could climb into the clouds. This is the precise moment modern architecture was born. 1855. The ghosts of the courthouse. Let's step back for a moment to this rare 1855 daguerreotype of the Cook County Courthouse. It is one of the oldest surviving photos of the city. The long exposure time required by early cameras turned the moving crowds on the steps into ghostly blurs. It gives the image a haunting quality, a fleeting glimpse of the civic life that buzzed around this heavy stone monument long before the skyscrapers cast their shadows. 1912. Blue Island Avenue. By 1912, the transition is nearly complete. On Blue Island Avenue, the modern hustle has arrived. Electric trolleys dominate the center lane, sharing space with the last of the horse-drawn wagons. The architecture is that classic Chicago brick, sturdy and grounded. This isn't a staged photo. It's a candid look at a working-class neighborhood finding its rhythm in a new century. 1893. The White City. Finally, we arrive at the dreamscape of 1893, the world's Columbian Exposition. This view over the Grand Basin shows the White City, a temporary neoclassical paradise built to prove Chicago had risen from the ashes of the Great Fire. It feels surreal, almost like a fantasy painting with its gleaming domes and electric lights. It was a bold, arrogant statement to the world that Chicago was no longer a frontier town. It was a civilization of its own. From the quiet canoe on a muddy riverbank to the gleaming White City, Chicago's story is one of impossible resilience. The fires, the mud, and the struggles didn't bury the city. They built the foundation for the skyline we know today.